Hey, it's me, Nick, and wanted to talk in this video a little bit about kind of answering the question of how someone can think that maybe they have it right and then they can tell other people if it's right or not. There seems to be this just common thing that's just, I don't know what you call it, but just everywhere you go, everybody seems to think that they're morally untouchable. You know what I mean? It's kind of like we have this thing in our minds to where we just think that nobody's any better than I am. Nobody knows morality any better than I do. I don't know exactly what it is, but you'll notice this. Try it sometime. To suggest that somebody that you know may be wrong about something that they're doing, see if they don't get angry at you. See if they don't become defensive immediately. I mean, how many people do you know, honestly, who, if you were to come up to them and say, you know, I've been watching you, and I've seen you doing this and this and this, and I really don't think that's the right thing to do. And I think that you're really, what you're doing is really dangerous. Who do you know who would just go, are you serious? Wow. I really didn't know that. Thanks for bringing that up. That's really something I'm going to have to think about. What else did you have in mind? No way. Nobody ever talks like that. It's, who do you think you are? Why are you judging me? Do you do that? If you were to come into my house through that door and tell me, Nick, it's raining outside, and I say, no, I don't think it is. No, you say, look, I'm wet. It's raining outside. And I say, no, I don't think it is. See, in my world, it's not raining outside. It's sunny. Would my belief that it was sunny outside change the fact that it was raining? No. And even if I didn't believe you, and I said, who are you to judge the weather? You know, shouldn't you be a little open-minded? Aren't you a little closed to the option that there could be, you know, other weather patterns out there right now? That'd be kind of ridiculous, don't you think? That'd be, I mean, and that's what people do with morality. That's what people do with God. You know, I come and I open up my Bible, and it says, God is a certain way. And so I read in here from the Bible writers that God is this way. And I come and tell you about it. And you say, no, for me, God's not like that. Well, honestly now, do you really think that what you or I change what God's like? What we think about Him? I don't think so. I mean, if you couldn't see the light of the sun, would that mean that the sun didn't exist? Or would that mean that it wasn't bright just because you couldn't see it? No. The sun is bright whether you think it is or not, and God is the way He is whether we agree with it or believe it or not. I mean, He is outside of our consciousness. He's outside of our reasoning. He's not subject to the way we perceive Him. And I've talked a little bit about this on some of my videos before. But I think this is really important, because if this book is right, and if God is really the way this book says He is, then I think a lot of people are in a lot of trouble. Honestly. Let me just give you an example here. The Bible says that you have a conscience. It says that you have the law of God written on your heart. In Romans chapter 2. I don't know if you've read Romans chapter 2, but I'm going to read it to you. Let's see here. It's talking about the judgment of God. And how somebody can be judged if they've never even heard the law of God. It says, For when the Gentiles who do not have the law, by nature do the things in the law, these, although not having the law, are a law to themselves, who show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and between themselves their thoughts accusing or else excusing them. So, this is Romans 2:14 and 15. So, this book says that God's given a law, and that law is written on your heart, and you have a conscience, and that conscience tells you whether you're following that law or not. And the way it does that is it accuses you. Your own thoughts will accuse you, because deep down, no matter how much you try to pretend, you know what's right and wrong. And no matter how much you try to explain it away, you know. And I'll show you here. Just answer these simple questions really quick. How many times have you ever lied in your life? Most of you would probably say, I don't know, a lot. So what do you call someone who tells lies? If you're honest with yourself, you're a liar. Second question. See, I'm going through the 10 Commandments here. That was the 9th one. Here's the 8th one. Thou shalt not steal. Have you ever stolen something in your life? Some people want to say no, but think about this. You just admitted that you were a liar. Can you really even believe yourself? Can you? What does your conscience say? Do you feel accused when I ask you that question? Have you ever stolen something? Have you ever pretended like you've been at work, but you haven't, and you're stealing money from your boss? Have you ever lied on your taxes? Come on, there's a lot of different ways to steal. It doesn't just have to be shoplifting or robbery or whatever. If you've stolen something, what does that make you? Again, if you're honest with yourself, you're a thief. I think it's the 3rd commandment, says that you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Have you ever used God's name as a cuss word to express disgust? That's called blasphemy. And you should feel accused when I tell this to you. You're a blasphemer if you've done that. All right, here's the one. Here's a tough one. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5, when he's doing the Sermon on the Mount, he says, "You've heard it was said by those of old, you shall not commit adultery." He says, "But I say to you, he who looks at another woman and lusts after her has already committed adultery with her in his heart." So have you ever committed adultery? Cheated on your wife? Or have you ever even looked at another person lustfully? I think that we can all see just by these couple of commandments that we're all pretty much guilty. You feel accused when I say this to you, don't you? You don't like to be called a liar. You don't like to be called a thief, a blasphemer, an adulterer. Do you? Why? Because you know those things are wrong. And it doesn't matter how much you try to pretend they're not. You know they are. And your very anger with me for telling you that they are wrong proves it. Because if you really believed that it wasn't wrong, you wouldn't care. You'd just be like, oh, whatever. Sure. Okay. Why would it bother you? It wouldn't. It bothers you because you have a conscience. And it bothers you because you know that the Bible is true. And you know that there is a moral law. And you know that you ought to live according to that moral law. And furthermore, you know you haven't lived according to that moral law. But who am I, right? Who am I to say you're doing right or wrong? Am I God? No. But what if I was? Would you even listen to me then? I think that if that's your attitude, you wouldn't. I think if that's your attitude, you are your own God. You are the center of the universe. You are the determiner of your own fate. That's the way you like to think. You're a good person, you think. And whoever's not like you, not as good as you are, not up to your moral standard, well, they're not. I think that's I always like to say, I think that's the reason a lot of people watch talk shows, is because they can point and say, hey, look at that person, at least I'm not that bad. So think about it. Just something for you to think about. There's a moral law. You know that it's wrong, and you're upset about me pointing it out because you know.